Today I'll be talking about foreign policy and why we should change it. Why do we go to war? It all started on September 11, 2001, when America was attacked by a group of extremists sent by Osama bin Laden. I remember that day, at the age of 8, being confused and not exactly knowing what was going on. I recall being scared, and so were my classmates, as teachers gathered around our television set, seeing CNN. Their facial expression changed to a look of fear and nervousness. At that time, many Americans were asking who did this and why. George W. Bush, being president at the time, said he'd go to capture and serve justice to whoever was responsible for this. At the time, it was a very reasonable idea to go to war. As time progressed, we took on Al Qaeda, and like any other war, there was a price to pay in bloodshed. As the war moved forward, our economy started to decline. We were using many of our resources to feed the war. Many Americans started becoming impatient with the capture of Osama bin Laden. Many thought to themselves, when is this going to be over? When can I have my father, my brother, or my sister back home with us? It was on May 2nd, 2011, after 10 years, when we finally found and killed Osama bin Laden. It was then when our country felt satisfied that justice was served. It was also then when many, including myself, thought that this war was over. Sadly, it's been 4 years since bin Laden's death, and we are still in Afghanistan. In fact, we keep hearing that our troops will be withdrawn, but that statement hasn't come true as of yet. This personally affects myself and my family. To know that my cousin / my best friend that I grew up with is still in Afghanistan, serving this endless war. My cousin is an infantry in the United States Marine Corps, and at this time is in Afghanistan. Thankfully, to this day, he's been kept safe. Unfortunately, many have not made it alive. It is said that as of June 24, 2014, there has been 2,196 military personnel deaths. It is also known that 19,964 service members have been wounded, many of which has lost their arms or legs in the battlefield by an IED. A great part that bothers me is that our war has cost the lives of young women and children, civilians who were not associated with Al Qaeda. The numbers of civilian kills are between 18,000 to 20,000. And this is the price to pay to get one man. How much longer are we going to be there is the question I ask myself. The fact is, no innocent life deserves to die, no matter what race, what region, or what religion they're from. Not only has our war cost masses of deaths on both sides, but it has also affected the mental state of our troops, many of which come back home with PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. It is also said that more troops have been lost to suicide than they have been in combat. Approximately 100,000 have committed suicide. In my view, this is unacceptable. The fact is, our military presence in Afghanistan has become a nightmare to the Afghan people and to the family members of military personnel. I think we are better off leaving Afghanistan and also not getting involved in other wars that have nothing to do with American safety. Instead, we should focus our energy and resources here instead of interfering in other countries' problems. For example, such as Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. I will now demonstrate a video where basically it puts us in the position of those foreigners, if it basically it's like if we were in their shoes, and this is
the. Imagine for a moment that somewhere in the middle of Texas there was a large foreign military base, say Chinese or Russian. Imagine that thousands of armed foreign troops were constantly patrolling American streets in military vehicles. Imagine they were here under the auspices of keeping us safe, or promoting democracy, or protecting their strategic interests. Imagine that they operated outside of U.S. law, and that the Constitution did not apply to them. Imagine that every now and then they made mistakes or acted on bad information and accidentally killed or terrorized innocent Americans, including women and children, most of the time with little or no repercussions or consequences. Imagine that they set up checkpoints on our soil and routinely searched and ransacked entire neighborhoods of homes. Imagine if Americans were fearful of these foreign troops and overwhelmingly thought America would be better off without their presence. Imagine if some Americans were so angry about them being in Texas that they actually joined together to fight them off in defense of our soil and sovereignty because leadership in government refused or were unable to do so. Imagine that those Americans were labeled terrorists or insurgents for their defensive actions and routinely killed or captured or tortured by the foreign troops on our land. Imagine that the occupiers' attitude was that if they just killed enough Americans, the resistance would stop. But instead, for every American killed, 10 more would take up arms against them, resulting in perpetual bloodshed. Imagine if most of the citizens of the foreign land also wanted these troops to return home. Imagine if they elected a leader who promised to bring them home and put an end to this horror. Imagine if that leader changed his mind once he took office. The reality is that our military presence on foreign soil is as offensive to the people that live there as armed Chinese troops would be if they were stationed in Texas.
In closing, a nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual doom. Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you.